So I'd like to introduce next Akhil Handa, who's the founder and CEO of an organisation called Earth 51. Obviously, Akhil will talk more about what he does, but the idea of Earth 51 is to support education on purpose-driven organisations and ESG to then support an outcome onto climate. So I'll introduce you in a second, Akhil, but one thing you've been very, very generous with today is that Earth 51 run an online course called Walk the Talk. Walk the talk, I'm going to get it wrong now. But Akhil was very kindly offered today, if you want to come and see him afterwards, a free access to that course with the value of about £360 you run it for. So for guests today, Akhil will certainly run that free. But I will pass across to Akhil if that's okay.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for that. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Richard. Wow, that's a tough act to follow. Some amazing questions I wanted to answer, actually, which I hope I can answer during my session. Because I think a lot of them are very practical questions, saying, how do we actually solve this? Before anything else, I'm Akhil Handa. I work with a small business called Earth 51. I'll tell you a bit more about it, but before anything else, I wanted to thank all of you in the room today. There must be about 100 people here, so it's great to see all of you taking time out, not just from the World Cup, but also on a Tuesday morning. So thank you for taking the time out and showing your commitment. And if you're here for 5 hours, that's 500 hours worth of collective time that we're all putting in together. So thank you for that. That's huge. A little bit about who we are. You don't mind me walking around, right? Okay, I'm not. Okay. So a little bit about who we are. We are a small business called Earth 51. We are born in Reading. So I think one of the first few times we can proudly say that we're in Reading, we're from Reading, and we're trying to take Reading to every corner of the world. We're a sustainability think tank, so we are an advisory firm of sorts, but now we also do education, we create digital assets, we do a bunch of different things. End game for us is to help businesses become better versions of themselves. And the reason we did that is because being a business myself, I feel that it's a little unfair when we point fingers at businesses saying, do more, do more, do more. But there's no blueprint or there's no roadmap in terms of how do you get started. The first question I get asked is, where do we start? Genuinely. And I think that's where we come in. So we are sandwiched between a management consultancy and a not-for-profit. So we got one leg in either pot. We're trying to do good and trying to drive profit for businesses as well. But with the money you make, try and invest some of that back into society. So I'll come to some of the questions that you asked earlier about, we keep doing so much, we're spinning in circles. As a consumer, I'm doing everything. What more can I do? We're not seeing change quick enough. So I want to come to that. Again, very proud, and I think this is the only audience I can stand in front of and say, we're from Reading. A lot of clients say, what's 51 in your name? Is that Area 51, something mysterious? Actually, that's the latitude coordinates that go through the heart of Reading. So we were formed for Reading. And every day on our journey, I get this question from over clients in every corner of the world. We take Reading across and they say, oh, Reading, okay, that's a nice. Yeah. So we are generally from Reading, a local business that's gone global, okay? Before I begin, I know Mike and Gurpreet had asked me to come and talk to you about business and sustainability, which I will. But there are two observations, and I think they're quite key given the questions that came up prior to this. One is, I know this is climate action, this is a climate summit today, but I find that sustainability and climate change have been brought together in the same wording. Climate change is sustainability. You ask most of the people out there. And I think that needs to change. Climate change is it's a part of sustainability. And I think that's really important to call out. It's not purely sustainability. And we've heard Richard talk about carbon and carbon sinks and and the fact that we're growing our carbon ratio so high. This is an interesting graphic I saw on, I'm getting an echo. Maybe I should move away. Yeah. I think we've got something of a tunnel vision when it comes to carbon emissions. It's all about carbon. And I think that's important. Please don't get me wrong. But I think we forget the people element of it. Because the problems are with the people. I mean, the problem is the people, and the problem is also impacting people. So I think we must make sure that we have a wider perspective on this, where we're looking at what are the other issues that plague the world today. Because it's all nice to sit in an air-conditioned room out here with 100 people with sandwiches waiting for us. But there are a bunch of people that have real issues, with 80% of the world facing the climate crisis that we're talking about while we show charts. And I wanted to call that out. say 1 billion people are affected every day. And we say 1 billion is just a number. It's 1 followed by 9 zeros. But 1 billion equates to the populations of the UK, the US, all of Europe, and throw Brazil in for good measure, since you mentioned that, Richard. Thank you for the cue. But 1 billion people aren't educated today. That's a lot of people. 1 billion people have no access to the electricity you were talking about. 1 billion people have no access to safe drinking water. We talk about plastic pollution. They need the plastic bottle to carry water because there's no piped water. And the last piece is 1 billion people will go to bed hungry tonight. Yeah? They don't get 3 square meals. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is let's not measure the world with 1 yardstick, saying it's carbon. Carbon's the problem. Hold on. They don't have basic human needs. They don't care about microplastics in the ocean. They just don't care about it. They don't care about solar panels on the rooftops. They don't care about it. But we need them. That's 80% of the world population. So unless we are able to solve larger problems and connect people to carbon and people to climate, we're not going to be able to solve this problem. And that's one of the pieces. Forgive me if you hadn't asked this question, but I think you were trying to ask, how do we solve this problem? It has to be a people problem as well. The next piece is save our planet. And we've been guilty of it. I've talked a lot about it. It's about the planet and purpose, planet and profit, this. And I think it's not about saving our planet. It's about saving ourselves. The planet doesn't need saving, with all due respect, Richard. And I'm so sorry I'm saying that to you. But the planet doesn't need saving. And just hear me out. The planet's been around for a while, okay? And this is from COP27, 6 ways to save our planet. Just look at the narrative that's out there. Save the planet, save the world. There's no other planet. How to save our planet? Coming out of COP27, we've done it as well. I think that's part of the problem to your question as well. We are not talking about saving ourselves. When we say save the planet, it's like, oh, you're saving the planet. That's oh, good. Get on with it. Good, great. You're not saving ourselves. And I think just this one mindset needs to change. We got to save ourselves because the Earth was there for the last. You went back 800,000 years. I've taken you back 4.5 billion years, right, Richard? So, gone back further. And say we've condensed the entire timeline of our planet from inception to today into a 24-hour clock. Midnight was when Earth was born. The dinosaurs roamed the Earth around 10:45 or so. It should come up, yeah. 10:45 for about 50 minutes, 55 minutes. Not bad. Whereas we have just arrived on the planet. Less than that, in a blink of an eye. We've just arrived, and we might just be gone, even if we survive the next 1,000 years. We are nothing but an aberration in our entire timeline. And the planet will be there for another 1.5 billion years. The planet's going to remain. We won't be able to sustain life on it for ourselves, if that makes sense. So I think the conversation has to change from save our planet to save ourselves, this is an SOS, and save our species. General agreement? Yeah? It's just the way we start to look at it. Okay, wonderful. I can get started now. So, sorry about that, but I think it's so important because 2 questions came up, and I feel this is a problem. I've been seeing the industry for the last 3 years, and we always talk about the planet like it's someone else. It's a third-party problem. Save ourselves. You're not going to survive this. Your generations won't. You won't see great-grandchildren at this rate, literally. Well, okay. So sustainability needs business. Let's talk about business and sustainability, and I'm going to flip this around. Does sustainability need business? It was very interesting to get some questions. Forgive me, someone asked a question about governments. Why aren't governments doing enough? And Richard said, he made a very good point about democracy is kind of flawed in a sense. Sustainability needs business because governments are very good at planning. So they plan for 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, 100 years. This is what's going to happen. They have good plans, but you need an executor for success. And the executors are business. And business have the widest reaching influence, perhaps, on the planet. Businesses touch every corner of the world. They, from the chairs and tables that we're sitting on to what I'm holding, to this entire room, there's all different business entities have come together to make this possible. They connect every bit of us. Businesses also have a lot of resource in terms of money. And I want to show that to you today. I hope that's the next slide, yeah. So you spoke about the damage and loss and damage fund, which is about 100 billion. I don't think they got there for COP27. $100 billion, a lot of money. Okay, This is the total amount of money the world makes. It's not global wealth, it's global GDP, $150 trillion. Each of these gray squares are $1 trillion each, okay? I get asked this question a lot saying, what are social enterprises doing? You know, all this money that goes into charities and non-profits, aren't they driving up social uplift? That's true, they are. And look at the amount of money that goes into charities, non-profits, Race for Life, cancer research, running the London Marathon, all of that good stuff. That's the amount of money, $500 billion. Sorry, I know people are getting up at the back to try and see where is it. It's right down here. That's $500 billion. That's half a gray square. That's all the social uplift on the planet, not just today, but all the way back from the 1990s. That money's oscillated between $400 and $600 billion. That's averaged out to $500 billion. That's the money. Whereas every year we make this much. That's a lot. And that's public and private organizations. Private sector alone, just the private sector alone, makes 70% of it, which is $110 trillion, which is up till there. That's the amount of money. Now, we're not saying funnel that all into change, but let's start to get businesses to change ever so slightly, and that drives a massive conversation for us. Let's flip it around. Do businesses need sustainability? Yes, they do, 100%. The very makeup of businesses are people, and I would say 75% of the workforce that exists inside businesses today are people born after 1986. So not most of us in the room. And they are called millennials, right? Millennials care about your business. They care about whether you are a purpose-led business or not. They are 3 times more likely to work for a company that's purpose-led. They are twice as likely to buy from a business that's purpose-led, and twice as likely to invest in a company that's purpose-led. The invest piece is huge, because if businesses are not going to get the money from the investors, they're not going to be able to perform. This is an interesting article, and I hope we don't have Volvo in the room today. So that's why I asked for the sheet of customers, yeah, because that's saying no to business now, okay. But on the 2nd of March last year, Volvo came out with a statement saying that by 2030, we're going all green. No more diesel and petrol chugging cars, right? So you're like, yeah, that's great. Volvo, amazing stuff, right? 9 months prior to that, BlackRock, which is one of the world's largest, think of it as the world's largest money manager with over $8 trillion in assets. BlackRock said, Volvo, you better get your act together in terms of climate inaction. Otherwise, we are switching off the tap of money that we've been giving to you. So you can see the cause and effect. Investors are categorically asking businesses to do more. Well, you're not going to get your money. So all that wealth and investments that we saw, it's going away. This is a press release from Prada. Fashion. There's the first fashion company to take a sustainability-linked loan, where their interest rates are linked to 3 factors. Very interestingly, the number of LEED certified stores, the number of sustainability training and education hours that you give your employees, and finally, whether you're using regenerated nylon or not in your product lineup. If you do that, your interest rates fall. The CFO is very happy because he's borrowed money for less. They're linking sustainability to money that's being doled out from Credit Agricole. Okay? So money is coming in and being tied to sustainable investments as well. The next piece is, so what do we do? Okay. Any answers? What do we do? That's what we're getting questioned. I would say there's no magic answer out here. Just start. Start today. Start somewhere. Start with your own organization. It's baby steps. Start by scanning your own organization for sustainability initiatives. Everyone's doing good. I don't like the question where people are like, oh, that company is not doing enough. Hold on. Everyone's making progress. Are you better today than you were yesterday? That's really important. Progress is more important than perfection out here. So scan your business, and don't scan it just for emission control and scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. Start looking at it. Do you have enough women on the board? Mike works for a company that has a CEO who's a lady. Excellent. There are fewer women CEOs in the FTSE 500 than there are, I think, men named James and John. So those are the kinds of things we want to change. It's so nice to see a diverse group of people out here. Different age groups, different genders, different everyone. Diversity of thought. Are we doing that inside our own organizations? Can we influence other parts of the business? We all have supply chains in different parts of the world. From the fruit bowls that bring kiwis from New Zealand to the strawberries in the evening that we eat, Everything comes from different parts of the world. Are we looking at minorities, ethnic minorities? Are we looking at gender diversity? Let's start looking at all of that. Scan the business as a better business. I promise you your carbon emissions will fall. It's just the way we are seeing it happen with every one of our clients. The next piece is, so this is just to further my point about gender equality, clean water, sanitation, all of the good stuff. Scan your business. The next piece is tell your story. This is not a marketing event, I know, but if you don't tell your story, no one knows what you're doing. And that's really important. And the more you tell your story, the more pressure you come under to actually start to improve as well, because now you're in the public limelight. So tell your story. And I think telling your story is the most undercalled, or is the secret sauce to try and make a difference out here. Think of your organization and what you know as below the water level. And if you start to share this, you've got investors who care about, oh, that's not a risky investment. They have a 15 to 20-year plan. That's great. You've got employees that say, yeah, this is a purpose-led business. This is what I want to work with. You've got customers that say, yep, you as a supplier are ethical, you're trusted, and you're actually helping me, because I'm getting questions asked about why you're not what your supplier base looks like. Governments, yeah, they love it, because when businesses work with governments, they're actually getting the work done. And I think that's really important. Last and maybe not least, there's a historic way we all write sustainability reports at the end of the year talking about the last 12 months. Don't do that. I mean, do the sustainability report, but start to talk about your story right through. Talk about your story every day. If you have sales teams going out to customers, talk about what you're doing. Talk about what you're doing with people and the planet and emissions. And, you say no to slavery. Thank God for that. You say no to child labor. And so if you're in a tech company, you don't have 15-year-old children writing code for you sitting in India. Or if you're a fashion company, you don't have 12-year-old kids, stitching socks in Bangladesh, for instance. You're asking the right questions. That's really important. If you're able to do that, you turn the wheels on financial outcomes. Your customer churn reduces. I get questioned about this a lot. How do we reduce churn? Well, your customers need to like you, they need to trust you, and they need to stick with you. You reduce churn. Customer acquisition costs come down. Your EBITDA can rise. Can you drive new incremental revenue streams because you have innovative new product lineups? During COVID, I mean, we had people who were running beer companies and now making sanitizers, for instance, or PPE equipment. You can innovate, and you must change every single day, or you'll be left behind. And I think as you innovate and develop solutions for the future, you'll be able to try and, you'll be able to solve the problems of tomorrow. So someone asked this question, forgive me, I think right at the back, saying, what do we do? Well, don't do a lot. Do something, 20%. We use the 80-20 rule. 20% of our efforts will drive 80% of all the progress that we see. And Richard, you said tipping points. I wanted a paper to write down all these points. You said tipping points. And I want to say the same thing. It's about reaching a tipping point inside your organization. Don't try and change the whole organization. It's never going to happen. 20% of your efforts, if you can start to, or get 20% of your employee base starting to look differently at sustainability, you will make a difference. At 35%, we see critical mass. Things start to flow. And I think that's what you really want to be driving. You want to create a cultural shift in business, but do it ever so slowly. 5%, 10%, 20%, 35%. And you would have made a lot of friends along the way to try and drive this change. And think about it. We're putting $500 billion, coming back to this piece. 20%, if every business just changed by 20%, that would drive a $60 trillion payout to the social sector. $60 trillion. I don't mean to keep picking on Richard, but I'm saying $100 billion from the fund that Richard talks about, $100 billion, and we're talking about $60 trillion. It's businesses that are going to change the world in terms of delivering solutions for the future. It's not governments, it's not individuals. Individuals keep the pressure on, but you are part of a business every day. You're the consumers. It's a consumerization of businesses and public sentiment. Okay? So I think that's really important to call out. $60 trillion or 30 times all the money that's going into social equity. Finally, thank you for that, Mike. It's not called Walk the Talk, but that sounds nice, actually. Yeah. We wanted to walk the talk. That's why we're here today. And we wanted to give back to Reading in our way. we created a simple education piece because most of the people don't need to be prescribed saying that, oh, that's the banana peel that goes in the green bin. You don't need prescripted advice. You need, you'll be able to connect the dots in your own organizations. But we just wanted to answer the why sustainability is important. Why is it really imperative for your business, for your customers, for your partners, for your channel, for everybody? And we created a course called Sustainability Leadership. Only because we couldn't go in person and we had to do this in Zoom calls during the COVID environment. So this was an experiment. We innovated, we changed, and we did it for one company in Slough. And today over 100,000 people have taken it. And we've had 400,000 hours of training. For us personally, we think, wow, people don't know this stuff. But people don't know this stuff. 95% of people don't know what sustainability is. What are the United Nations SDGs? What is scope 3 emissions? What are we talking about? So a simple course that talks about sustainability and why you should do it, and then you're more than free. Then you will question it, saying, okay, what are we doing about it? So if you want to garner friends in your organization and you want to create sustainability champions, this is a great way forward. And for everyone who does this, we will offset their carbon footprint by a ton of CO2. That's equivalent to 16 flights between London and Paris, just to point that out. So, or plant 10 trees, whichever one you like. But we want to do that on your behalf. But more than anything else, this is a win-win. We get to educate locally because we always get that criticism. You're doing so much in the rest of the world. Why aren't you doing enough in Reading? This is our chance to give back to Reading. And thank you, Mike and Gurpreet, for the opportunity for that. Yeah. So, any questions? Sorry, this clicker doesn't work. Maybe before you ask a question, have you maybe walked away with 20% more than when I started the session? 20% more. Thank you.
Thank you, Akhil. You always make me listen when you talk. So thank you very, very much for coming today. And I must apologise to all the alien hunters who came here today, who've been missold to understand about Earth 51 or Area 51 today. So apologise to you. Liana, are you around somewhere with a microphone? Or Colin this time? Has anyone any questions for Akhil? Please, thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Thanks, Akhil. That was really good. Just actually on the last slide that you showed in regards to the offset, one of the things, so I work for a logistics company. We're not asset-based, so we have third parties that we're relying on reports. But how do you plan to offset, sorry, a bit of a challenge, but 1,000 tonnes of carbon through the course? I mean, how do you do it? Plant trees?
Oh, yeah.
So different things, so that was interesting.
Yeah, sure. So offset is good. It's okay. It was great yesterday. It's okay now. It's not going to be good tomorrow. That's the way I see offsets. But the way carbon is offset is in multiple ways. The way we do it is through sponsoring the digging of bore wells in places like Uganda, where if you didn't dig bore wells for water to drink, I told you safe drinking water is a real problem. They go down to the groundwater level and they dig bore wells pretty deep. Otherwise, people would, dysentery and diarrhea are real problems in, say, in Uganda region, in rural areas. And to guard against it, they need to boil water. To boil water, they need to chop the tree. They need to chop the tree, then they burn the wood, and then smoke up the air. To avoid all of that, you offset that by giving them a bore well to drink water. So that's one way to do it. There are other ways. Efficient cooking stoves. So instead of trying to cook a meal for a family for 2 hours with wood, you give them efficient cooking stoves, which is about 70% less time. It's almost like a pressure cooker. So you can give them that. So you reduce that over multiple rural communities over time. Tree planting, the funny thing about tree planting is a lot of people ask us to plant trees. Survival rates are a problem. So where you might plant it in a mangrove forest, but will it survive the climate change effects over the next few years? So we do plant trees. We get customers that categorically say plant trees. We say, okay, fine, we plant trees for you. So that's why I mentioned the point here. If you want us to plant 10 trees for you, we'll plant 10 trees for you. But I think it's also about carbon offset. So, sorry, was too lengthy an explanation for you? Okay, good. Any other questions? No? No? Okay. Oh, there's one at the back. Catherine.
Hi, Akhil. That was a great talk, thank you. I was just a bit curious because you said if you make improvements in your diversity of thought and all sorts of diversity within the business, you will see your emissions go down.
Yes.
And I'm just curious to know how that happens. Is there a mechanism by which that happens?
No,
just
not
by increasing diversity?
Not directly. The fact that you're asking the question as a lady and not a man shows diversity of thought and you care about it. And that's my point. I think if we had a room full of, so you know, we've got diversity of thought here. But as you go into an organization and you climb higher and higher, you get 20% women, less than that. There's no diversity of thought. And that's my problem. 50% of our planet is made up of women and men, right? It's 50-50. But when you start getting into organizations, it starts to reduce down to, and let's not take fashion and media, but every other industry, it's about 70-30. And you get into technology and it's 20-80. You get into cybersecurity and it's 5-95. It's ridiculous. And these are the cutting edge technologies of tomorrow which are going to develop and build solutions for the future. We don't have any women. Where? And even if you have women at the managerial level, you have no women in leadership, which is a shocker. And for me, that's what I mean. We don't have diversity of thought to start becoming more sustainable businesses. My wife is more sustainable. I know Richard mentioned that his wife is ordering a lot of Amazon boxes. It's the other way around in my house, where I'm the one being told off by my wife all the time. She's far more sustainable as an individual than I am, and she calls me out for it. And I think that's what you need. You need multiple thoughts in a room to become a better business, and I think that's really important. So again, long explanation, but Catherine, I hope that helped. Any other questions before I've got 2 minutes? No? No more questions.
Thank you very much, Akhil.